A lot of people think that amazing renders require amazing models, and that's not true. And I'm gonna prove it to you in the first 60 seconds of this video. Let's go. So in this video, I'm gonna break down 3 renders, one from Yan Urchel, one from Cole Price, and one from myself. And we're gonna discuss cinematic lighting, what makes these renders exceptional, and how you can improve your own renders and what to pay attention to. So the first image is gonna be from Yan Urchel, and this is a Banu Defender Star Citizen concept that he created for the game. And I'm going just to hide the Star Citizen logo for a second and his name here, Yan Urchel 2017, because I want you to appreciate this render in its full glory. In my opinion, this is one of the best renders on ArtStation. I'm not even exaggerating. This is a fucking masterpiece. It's a masterpiece in controlling lighting, in controlling silhouettes, in controlling composition. This render is insane. And there's so many strong elements in here, it's just crazy. So let's break it down, okay? First of all, you notice that there's only one color of light. It's just orange. We do have some bluish accents on the ship, but the lighting from the sun and the reflections are reflecting back on the ship, right? And they sort of saturating even those bluish tones. But the orange dominates, like an amber color dominates the whole render. Another thing that's really prominent is that we have a very strong backlight, right? This backlight creates a massive drama, but also what it does, it makes you focus instead of details of the ship on the silhouette. So the silhouette of the ship is really strong. It's a beautiful concept. Go on his website, on Yan Urchel website, and check all the images. They're fantastic. It's a fantastic vessel. But the concept is so strong and so bold and so original and so well balanced that he could simply use the silhouette and create an amazing render. So breaking this render down, we have first of all 3 sections, right? And let me just grab a pen so you can see that. I'm gonna grab maybe a blue one. Let me see this. There we go. So first of all, we have one section is in here on the top. That's a second section. And on the bottom is a third section, right? So we have 1, 2, 3. Now the ship is below the horizon, so already it's offsetting in the image below the horizon, which means it's not in the middle, it's slightly below the middle, right? So the center of gravity is more or less 2/3 from the top, 1/3 from the bottom, which is 70-30. Beautiful, beautiful, kind of distribution of weight here, especially that we have this amazing negative space here on the top cutting out this silhouette of the vessel, and it's just huge. It takes almost 2/3 of the entire image, right? Then you have this negative space continuing with reflections on the bottom, so the negative space in the image is massive. It's about, I would say 70% of the whole image, which is just superb. Now another thing that's really interesting is that we have camera angle, which is below the middle of the vessel. The central point of the vessel is somewhere here, and the camera is more or less, aiming slightly below that, right? So the camera is on a very intimate angle, okay, on a very intimate elevation, and also the focal length is really long. It's about, I would say, 200 at least, maybe 135. I would say it's 200, maybe even more. But it compresses the view and makes it sort of more of a compact scene, okay? It compacts everything, brings everything closer together and creates a more intimate image, which is further emphasized by the circle, right? Circles are massive pools, visual pools, and very strong elements in any composition. And this circle is just huge, right? The sun is enormous. And it sort of makes you focus on that middle part and read the silhouette of the vessel immediately, right? Then another thing is that the vessel itself, the silhouette, is also kind of following the circle, and the lines on these arms kind of guide you around the sun, going down to to this entrance there and the human here in the middle. So you're being guided down here. Your eyes are kind of following this line, then guided down back here, and the same on this side, guided all the way to the payoff, which is in the middle here, right? Then going to the payoff, it's a human silhouette, which you're gonna see immediately because we always drawn to human beings, silhouettes, faces, something that looks like humans or faces, etc. So that's, you know, a perfect filler of this negative space here. But another thing is that this human is actually looking at the vessel and the vessel is looking at the human, okay? They have a conversation, which is beautiful because it locks you in this kind of an intimacy, okay, intimate moment in there. So you got this sun, which frames the whole thing, and the payoff, which is just a conversation between the human and the machine. Then you got the foreground, which is superb. You got this horizon line here below, which is, like I said, about 2/3 deep. And then you have another layer here created by this cable. So you have these two kind of lines here that basically isolate the base of this vessel. So they create kind of like a standing base for the vessel. And then you have this foreground here, right? Then we have supporting elements. So we have the crates here and we have the crates here, which act, you know, they act as frames of the whole image, kind of pushing you inward, right? Sort of limiting how far you can go left and right, kind of squeezing you inside the image, re-emphasizing and redirecting you back into the payoff, which is again the middle here. Now the middle of this image, which is again a payoff, it's also off center. You can see that it's clearly off center here, you know, on the bottom, right? This is the center of the image. This one is off center, so it's offset to create a bit more of a dynamic feel. Now this human is beautifully balanced by this leg here and also by this canister, and you have this, you know, sort of weight distribution, like even weight distribution on both sides of this vessel, right? Then you have the directions. You know, that's really very subtle, but if you look deeper, you're gonna see that the vessel is pointing this way, so is this cable, so is this cable. So you have this kind of a break of this horizontality, okay? You have this horizontal feeling, which is very calm, because horizontal lines in an image are gonna introduce calmness and stillness. And these lines, they are breaking it, okay? They kind of introduce a bit of a flavor to this image and breaking it. Now the lighting is so simple. You got just one light, right? One light, it's a backlight, and it simply backlights the silhouette. And the only thing you're focusing on is just the silhouettes of the vessel, of the cargo, of the human. It's a very cinematic, you know, image. It's very powerful, and like I said, it's one of the best, in my opinion, you know, images on ArtStation. So definitely study Yan Urchel. He has a very, very deep understanding of composition, of lighting on an intuitive level. So I highly recommend, if you want to get some really good references, grab his stuff and put it in your PureRef file. Okay, you're gonna learn a lot from this guy. Another one is gonna be image from Cole Price, and Cole Price has some really interesting, you know, concept art on his ArtStation too. Now this image is one of my favorites as well. I remember I found it a long time ago, and although it's not perfect, there are a few things, maybe 2 or 3 things that I would do a bit differently, but we're gonna get to this later. So let's talk about why this image is so beautiful and so amazing. First of all, very different from this, because this image is stillness, peacefulness, isolation, intimacy, right? It's very peaceful. It's a moment between the human and the vessel, somewhere after some kind of like, you know, action or like some sort of mission in space. You know, he's just doing something over there, chilling, right? And maybe waiting for someone. But it's a very calm and peaceful moment. This one is full of motion, right? It's full of, you know, aggression. It's full of anticipation because it's a landing, but also it's full of uncertainty because you don't know if they're friendly, they're not friendly, you have no idea who this is, right? But we have these amazing vessels, and first of all, let's talk about the vessels. They're brilliant, you know, they look like kind of angry frogs, and the massiveness of these vessels, the enormity of these vessels, you know, the huge size of them is re-emphasized by massive elements in huge negative space. I mean, look at this wing. This wing basically is just a wing with faint elements here and there, you know, cuts of panels, etc. But mostly just pure, clean surfaces like this one, the massive sheets of negative space. And they re-emphasize the massive size and the weight of these vessels, right? And they add to this kind of like a brutalistic feel of this scene, okay? Then we got the composition, which is genius, right? So we got this massive vessel in the front and these tiny humans in here for the scale reference, right? Which is fantastic. So you can immediately tell the scale of the vessel, right? Because it's huge and the humans are big. You have immediate scale reference. You have the mountains in the back, the storm, the commotion. You're kind of envisioning some alien planet, some huge vessels landing, right? It's just compounding effect of all these small things, right? But we have this main vessel here in the front, and we have 3 supporting vessels. Now, you can clearly see what he's done here. He's used atmospheric depth to create, more 3-dimensional feeling to this image by simply making these vessels in the back a little bit less visible. Obviously, there's a lot of rain. There's, as wind, it's dark. It's kind of, probably somewhere in the evening. And so we have, these 3 vessels landing, but it also gives you the scale of this landing pad. It must be huge because this vessel is landing as well, and it's really, really far away. Now, let's talk about the composition itself, right? So we have this very kind of a uniform color of the image broken with some red accents. We have a red accent here, which is really strong, and it's gonna make you look there instantly. Immediately you're gonna look over there because it's really powerful, right? And it's gonna make you slide along these wings to catch this vessel, right? And you're gonna be then going down to the humans and kind of circling around in this image, okay? And when you wanna bounce too high, you're gonna get bounced back from this vessel because it sort of closes the image and fills this gap here of the negative space, being slightly offset to the right. If we put it in here, it would be boring. That's actually makes this image so flavorous because you get this cascading sort of zigzagging line going from the humans all the way up, okay? It's very dynamic. You move between the elements like a person who's doing some slalom in skiing. Anyway, so we got these accents which are gonna guide you through, through the image and, all these red accents, plus we got this massive whirl here in the back, which is also gonna draw attention. So you got all these, elements in the image to move between to keep you locked in. Now this human scale is genius because it shows you how big the vessels are. Also fills this, beautiful negative space. You've been led to these humans by the waterfall. So you pop in here because we usually start reading images from the left side, coming from the left side, going to the right. We're gonna slide here, guided by the light, going all the way here through the waterfall down to humans, through the engines, and going up, bouncing back, and and you're gonna circle in the image, right? So it's really, really cool. Now another thing that's really genius, right, is this brighter element here because it gives you this separation between the vessel and the background also makes this one stand out even more, right? Because the contrast here between the edge of the dark vessel and the brightness of this is much deeper than here because this one is already behind some atmospheric depth. So this contrast makes it more visible, also makes it bigger, right? More impactful, more intimidating. Because of the contrast, you're going to focus there immediately. You can see this is the darkest element in the whole image. If you squint your eyes, right, then you can see that, this is the darkest part in the image, and this is secondary. This is going to be tertiary over there because we always look for humans, right? Now, things I would change. I think it would be better. I think I know what he was going for, but I still would do it differently. The angle of these two, right, is a bit different. And I know what he was going for. He was going for breaking the monotony of lines. But I personally think that if this vessel was actually, on the same angle, right, all 3 of them, I think it will be stronger because it will re-emphasize the power of these vessels, the intimidation level of them landing. It's like a whole group landing as one squadron, at the same angle. I think it would be better. Another thing I don't like is this lack of breathing space between the tip of the wing and also the edge of the frame. I think this image would gain incredible power if it was 21 by 9. If you stretched it a little bit and moved this vessel a bit to the left, even clip the wing, you know, like this, right? So you could clip the wing like this to make it even more enormous, and move these humans even further down to the right, and I think it would be better, but you know, that's just me. This image, because it's 16 by 9, I think it actually re-emphasizes the scale of these vessels, so you know, this also works. I'm still not crazy about this edge here of this corner of the wing, literally clipping with the edge of the frame. This is causing me, you know, kind of like a reactive itch. Okay, I just really want to fix this. Either crop it or give more breathing space. I'm not crazy about this. But other than this, you know, this is a superb image and absolutely brilliant concept. I mean, Cole Price has some crazy stuff on his ArtStation. I highly recommend him. He's a fantastic concept artist, and you're gonna learn a lot from his imagery. Okay. Just very quickly here, before we're gonna go to the third render, I would like to say that if you want to really master the art of rendering, master the art of lighting, composition, camera work, visual anchors, negative space, which is all essential not just for rendering, but also for creating better design, because all these things are connected, then grab our course called Rendering University, into which I packed 25 years of my personal experience as a visual artist coming from 3 different disciplines: photography, Japanese calligraphy, and 3D art. The course is called Rendering University. The link is in the video description. Now, lastly, I'm going to talk about this image here, which is my image. You can find it on ArtStation. It's a building, and this composition is quite interesting because, first of all, we have a Dutch angle. Dutch angle is, you know, slanted angle. They kind of tricky to pull off because you need to really be able to fill the composition properly with all the elements, and when you move something on a diagonal, the proportions change. You know, stuff in the front appears bigger than the back, especially when you're using wider, you know, wider angle lens. So it's a bit more tricky to pull off, but this one works for multiple reasons, right? First of all, we're filling the frame on a diagonal, and we break in this kind of a stillness of the image. The image is very still and peaceful. Now, the isolation of this image and peacefulness is re-emphasized by a few elements. One of them is going to be, you know, this isolation from a city, because you cannot see this. It's too blurry because the building is super tall and you got the clouds. Another one, you got only 3 elements that are actually anchoring the eye. One of them is going to be the human here, clearly human silhouette, and we can see them immediately. And this gives you a sense of scale, which is fantastic. The ship is the second one, right? And the third one is going to be the birds. And the birds are really important because they play a few roles in this image, okay? So we're going to give this, you know, kind of a line between these 3. And if you draw a line between this dish, which is a massive focal point, and actually it's going to catch your attention and redirect you immediately towards the vessel, and then you're going to bounce back here and go towards the human. If you're going to draw a line between these 3, you're going to see that the human is going to be framed by a perfect triangle, right? So we're going to have this human inside of a triangle, which re-emphasizes, you know, this silhouette here in the middle. So it's very strong. Then we have interesting layers to the image going down, creating this sort of a sense of scale, but also of height. You got, you know, the deck here on the top. You got this wall going down, breaking, and then the pad, and then you got the city. So you got 3 levels, you know, dropping down, giving you sense of scale and also of the height. Now, this image is really peaceful. Like I said, it's a quite interesting composition, and the composition is, you know, held strong by these birds. They're barely visible, but you will notice them, and they're meant for your eyes to bounce back to this dish and sort of fill this negative space here. Negative space is very peaceful, is surrounding the entire, you know, building. There's a very clear silhouette of the building, even though the colors and tones are quite similar. You can clearly see the building silhouette, which is really important because, you know, being able to read the silhouette of a model immediately in the image is super important. So the lighting here is quite interesting because at the same time creates a bit of drama with the shadows, but also supports the peacefulness and isolation and intimacy of this image. It's very elevated, it's very high, you're very alone, right? It's very peaceful. There's only one person, one vessel, a few birds, and that's it, and just wind. And that's the feeling you're supposed to be getting from this image. You're on the top of the world, right? That's the key. So you see, creating really good images is a knowledge of manipulating with lighting. Obviously, elements in a scene, so visual anchors, negative space is huge. And then you have, you know, stuff like distribution of detail, balancing, you know, game of proportions, and also where you're gonna place the key elements and how you're gonna offset them with other things in the frame. And this is something that you cannot learn in 1 or 2 days, 1 or 2 weeks, or even 1 or 2 months. It's gonna take a bit longer. And in order to help you with this, I highly recommend you go ahead and grab our course, which is called Rendering University. It's for people who really are serious about creating an amazing portfolio, understanding lighting, composition, framing, etc. There are theoretical parts over there. There's a practical part or two. There's a compositing part. This course is a masterclass and must-have on composition, lighting, rendering, and all that, okay? I packed 25 years of my experience coming from 3 different disciplines, visual disciplines like photography, Japanese calligraphy, and 3D, to teach you how to actually create insanely good renders and how to understand how to improve your renders and why some of your renders may not be that good and what makes a good render, so you're gonna, you know, improve immediately. Every single person who went through this course really appreciated it, so I highly recommend it. The link is in the video description. The course is called Rendering University. And if you would like to learn more about renders, I recommend you this next YouTube video in which I'm gonna show you how to create more appealing renders in Blender. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.